poor wife finds billionaire and mistress together, but she's been hiding a secret of her own. Have you ever believed your life was perfect, only to discover that everything you cherished was built on secrets and lies? In this gripping tale of love, betrayal, and hidden agendas, Vanessa Sterling, a devoted wife, married to millionaire entrepreneur Richard Sterling, finds her entire world unraveling in a single, unforgettable night. But as she unearths her husband's shocking affair with a mysterious woman named Alicia Evans, she realizes that sometimes the biggest deceits don't come from the people you suspect, but from within yourself. Prepare to be swept into a storm of scandalous twists and turns that prove everyone has something to hide. Vanessa Sterling woke to the familiar hum of luxury that encased her everyday plush silk sheets, an oversized velvet headboard, and the faint scent of fresh peonies arranged by the staff just as the sun began to rise. She rolled over, her gaze settling on the mahogany nightstand with the sterling silver photo frame. The picture was of her and Richard at the street, Regis in Bora Bora, celebrating their 10th wedding anniversary. They looked impossibly happy in that photo, two silhouettes framed by a brilliant teal ocean and the warm glow of an island sunset. From the outside looking in, Vanessa's life was the very embodiment of success, married to Richard Sterling, a millionaire entrepreneur who had made his fortune through visionary tech investments. Their home, a sprawling estate in the heart of Bel Air, boasted manicured gardens, a custom-built infinity pool, and a star-studded guest list whenever they hosted soirees. Richard was well respected in business circles, known for his charm, ambition, and philanthropic efforts. Vanessa had long since settled into the role of supportive wife and gracious hostess, her entire identity fused with her husband's towering presence. It was the dream she believed she wanted. As she got out of bed, she felt the early morning sunlight spill across the polished marble floors. The house was quiet, except for the subtle swish of the maid's broom down the hall. Vanessa's schedule was already packed with philanthropic meetings, charity luncheons, and the constant swirl of social obligations that came with her position. She would be meeting with old classmates from Vassar in the afternoon for a ladies' lunch rendezvous at the Beverly Hills Hotel, then off to a fundraiser planning session for her newly formed mental health charity. Vanessa's eyes danced over her to-do list, typed neatly and emailed to her every morning by her personal assistant. But something felt different today. A strange heaviness pressed against her chest, an unnamed anxiety that made it difficult to focus. Perhaps it was the eerie quiet in the mansion that morning, or the way Richard had cut short their conversation last night. A worried crease in his forehead as he mumbled something about an urgent business matter. He had slept in his study, claiming he needed to prepare documents for an early morning conference call with investors in Asia. She found him there, precisely as he had said, still in his clothes from yesterday, only now the tie was loosened and his suit jacket lay crumpled on the leather armchair. His laptop screen displayed a spreadsheet half filled with data. A fancy silver tray bearing cold coffee and an untouched croissant balanced on the edge of the desk. "Morning," Vanessa said softly, crossing the study to place a light hand on his shoulder. He looked up, momentarily startled, but when he saw her, his face broke into a practiced, warm smile, though it did not reach his eyes. "Morning," Richard greeted her. "I must have dozed off. I've got that conference call in about 20 minutes. I'll head upstairs to shower as soon as we're done." "Are you heading to your meeting soon? Not for a while. Are you okay?" she asked, searching his gaze for honesty. "You seemed stressed last night." He nodded, raking a hand through his perfectly styled hair that had gone slightly limp. "I'm fine. It's just business. One of our venture partners got cold feet on an investment in Singapore. Typical corporate drama. I'll handle it." Vanessa tried to smile, but a flicker of doubt gnawed at her. She couldn't place it exactly, but his aura felt off, like a dissonant chord in a piece of music that otherwise sounded perfect. She decided to let it pass for the time being. She was well accustomed to Richard's mood swings whenever negotiations turned tense. She, of all people, knew how demanding his business empire could be, but the seeds of unease had been planted. By the time Vanessa left for her midday commitments, she couldn't shake the feeling that something lurked beneath the surface, something she had not yet named. The day unfolded in a blur of obligatory events. At the Beverly Hills Hotel, she joined her friends' names like Rachel Barnes, Eleanor Carter, and Courtney Ishimoto, each a polished gem of the upper crust. They traded gossip about real estate deals, upcoming galas, and romantic getaways. The conversation flitted around, occasionally settling on the personal tragedies and triumphs of absent acquaintances. Vanessa sipped her tea and forced a laugh at the appropriate moments. She felt suffocated by the charade. When the lunch ended, Vanessa parted ways with her friends and drove back to the estate. The short ride in her luxury SUV gave her a brief moment of solitude, though her thoughts wrestled with unvoiced suspicions. How many nights had Richard worked late in the last few months? Had he pulled away from her physically, or had she imagined it? Was it just the stress of a multi-million-dollar empire? The gates to their estate swung open with a mechanical hum, revealing the meticulously trimmed hedges and a driveway lined with bougainvillea. Once inside, she headed to her dressing room to freshen up before meeting with her personal trainer. She almost missed the faint beep of Richard's phone, vibrating on a nearby marble tabletop. He'd apparently left it behind. Though they had never opened each other's phones before without permission, curiosity burned through her. That beep could be a reminder, an innocuous text, or the missing piece to the puzzle that was eating away at her. She hesitated, heart pounding, waging an internal battle between trust and suspicion. Finally, she picked it up and saw a single line on the lock screen from a name she did not recognize, Alicia Evans. "Looking forward to seeing you tonight. Miss you." Vanessa's stomach twisted. An icy wave washed over her, followed by a surge of heat. "Miss you," that was not a typical business text. She tried to calm herself. Alicia Evans could be a colleague or a partner, but deep down, she knew better. The words carried an intimacy that had rarely surfaced between her and Richard in recent months. Trembling, she placed the phone down. She wanted to throw it against the wall or smash it beneath her heels. But even in her turmoil, Vanessa was methodical. She jotted down the name and the time of the message on a mental note. Then she took several deep breaths, set the phone back where she found it, and forced herself to pretend nothing had happened. What she did not know yet was that this single line, "Miss you," would unravel everything she believed about her life, her marriage, and even herself. She would soon discover that the secrets she feared in Richard's life were merely an overture to the monumental revelation about her own past. For now, the stage was set, and her perfect world was about to collapse under the weight of betrayal, lies, and a truth she never expected to face again. Days passed, each of them stained with a creeping sense of dread. Though Richard continued to maintain a semblance of normalcy, taking business meetings and handling phone calls at odd hours, Vanessa felt as if she were watching a man wearing a carefully constructed mask. At their Wednesday charity gala, she found him withdrawing into corners for hushed phone calls. Glancing at his watch with restless impatience, Vanessa tried to confront him subtly. "Everything okay?" she'd asked. "You seem preoccupied." Richard's response was immediate and crisp. "Nothing's changed. Just a few hiccups with the negotiations." Then he changed the subject to the success of the gala. The next day, she noticed Richard wearing a new tie she had never seen before, crimson and sleek, with a subtle pattern. When she asked him about it, he shrugged. "I picked it up a while back. Finally found the right suit to wear it with." but Vanessa knew his entire wardrobe had always gone through her or his personal stylist. Richard never spontaneously bought ties for himself. It was such a small detail, but it was enough to fuel her suspicions further. An oppressive tension hung between them, particularly at night. Their bedroom conversations had become superficial, the lull before the storm. She found herself lying awake, staring at the faint outline of Richard's form in the dark. Sometimes he was there. Sometimes he wasn't, still caught up in his office or returning from an alleged late-night business dinner. She spent hours recollecting every word, every moment from the past decade, searching for clues she might have overlooked. Eventually, Vanessa took a decisive step into dangerous territory. She hired a private investigator. Doing so felt like plunging a knife into her own sense of morality. Their marriage vows, their life of trust, and her self-image as a loving, supportive wife. She felt she was betraying all of that by taking this route. Yet she couldn't drown the suspicion with blind faith. She had to know. And so she reached out to a discreet contact recommended by a friend who'd gone through her own marital crisis. Enter Ryan Talbot, ex-law enforcement, now a private eye working from an unassuming office in a busy downtown LA building. He had a reputation for delivering hard truths with no sugarcoating. Vanessa explained the situation in hushed tones, aware of how surreal it felt. She, the philanthropic wife of Richard Sterling, rummaging through her own marriage's dirty laundry with a stranger. Ryan nodded. "I get it, Mrs. Sterling. You just want clarity." Vanessa's voice faltered. "Yes, exactly. I want to know everything." She paused, trembling slightly. "There's a name, Alicia Evans. She might be important." Ryan gave her a sympathetic smile. "I'll see what I can find." The week that followed felt interminable, each day weighed down by Vanessa's tangled emotions. She oscillated between guilt, fear, anger, and, most unsettling of all, a trace of anticipation. If Richard indeed had a mistress, she wanted to be proven right, so she could finally trust her instincts. But if that day came, how would she confront him? Would she walk away from this life she'd built? One afternoon, while Richard was supposedly away on a 2-day business trip, Ryan Talbot called. His voice crackled with a tension that made Vanessa's heart skip a beat. "We found something. I think you'll want to see it for yourself. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., a penthouse suite at the Hotel Artemis downtown." She nearly dropped her phone. "Richard is in San Francisco for meetings," she responded weakly. Ryan's tone was unyielding. "He's not. I have pictures, timestamps. He's booked a room under a different name and alias." Vanessa's knees buckled and she collapsed into the nearest chair, her mind swirling with dread and heartbreak. There was no denying it now. She could no longer hide behind denial. "But even so," she said, "I'll be there." The next day, she prepared as if going to war. She dressed in understated black slacks and a blouse, refusing to appear like a jilted spouse who had dressed up for confrontation. She wanted to slip in unnoticed, to be the observer rather than the spectacle. She pinned her long brown hair into a low chignon and removed all her jewelry except for her wedding ring. Ryan met her 2 blocks from the hotel, ushering her into a nondescript rental car. The city lights flickered around them as he drove to a parking lot overlooking the Hotel Artemis. Her heart hammered in her chest, and each breath felt heavier than the last. At precisely 8 p.m., Ryan handed her a pair of high-end binoculars. Through them, she observed the penthouse's balcony high above the streets, its curtains partially open. A tall silhouette, unmistakably Richard's, strode into view, and then another figure joined him, a woman with wavy, raven hair cascading over her shoulders, wearing a form-fitting white dress. Vanessa's grip on the binoculars tightened. The woman was Alicia Evans, she had no doubt. Even from a distance, Alicia exuded a seductive magnetism that made Vanessa's blood run cold. She caught glimpses of a candlelit dinner table set for two, and then Richard leaning in to kiss Alicia with an intimacy that turned Vanessa's stomach. A part of her wanted to look away, to spare herself from the horrifying confirmation, but she forced herself to keep watching. The cruel truth illuminated under the city's neon glow. Richard was indeed with another woman. Vanessa's world shattered in that moment, each fragment of trust and love she'd clung to for over a decade, falling away like broken shards. A quiet sob ripped through her, but she stifled it quickly. She didn't want Ryan's pity. Once she had seen enough, she handed the binoculars back and whispered, "Take me home." Ryan said nothing, his sympathy obvious. He simply started the car and drove her back. The silence in the vehicle was suffocating. Vanessa stared out the window, trying to collect herself. A fierce swirl of emotions stormed through her mind: heartbreak, betrayal, fury, and a desperate need for answers. How long had this been going on? How could Richard do this to her? Yet another thought emerged, one that startled her in its intensity. She had been living a lie too. Perhaps she deserved a fraction of this heartbreak, for she had never been entirely honest with Richard about certain events that happened before they married. She had let him believe he was her world, that her only family ties were to a distant cousin in New York. She had concealed her deeper truths beneath layers of pleasantries and the safe facade of social niceties. If only Richard had known what truly lay in her past, would he still have married her? More terrifying, had she somehow driven him away with her own secrets? That night, Vanessa barely slept. She lay awake, replaying the scene at the Hotel Artemis over and over, simultaneously terrified and relieved that she finally knew the truth. The next morning, she woke with puffy eyes and a throbbing headache, confronted by the emptiness of a marital bed that felt like a tomb. She stared at Richard's side, the pillows untouched, the sheets still neatly tucked. She realized with grim certainty that he was still with Alicia. A new resolve pulsed in her veins. She would not sit idle, wringing her hands like the shattered wife in some cliché. She wouldn't cause a scene at the penthouse or in some public venue. She would confront Richard on her own terms, in her own way. But first, she needed to plan, because the last thing she intended to be was a helpless victim. Not after what life had already taught her. It happened 2 nights later. Richard returned to the mansion, wearing the same clothes he'd left in, but reeking of a different scent, warm amber mixed with the faint aroma of perfume that was not Vanessa's. It took every ounce of her composure to keep from lashing out at him the moment he entered. Instead, she sat in the living room on a plush white couch, sipping from a glass of Merlot. She waited for him to approach her. "Hey," he said uncertainly, setting his suitcase by the door. "I'm sorry I didn't call. The meetings ran late. I ended up staying an extra night." Vanessa eyed him, her expression guarded. "San Francisco must be lovely this time of year." He nodded, swallowing. "Yeah, it was. Fine." She watched him closely, noting the avoidance in his gaze, the slight tension in his jaw. He's lying, she thought, hating how effortlessly he did it. "Richard," she began, letting his name linger in the air, "I'm going to ask you a question, and I'd like an honest answer." She set her wine glass on the coffee table. "Are you having an affair?" The silence that fell was so profound, she could hear the ticking of the antique clock on the mantel. Richard's eyes went wide and his face paled. He tried to speak, but no words came. "Are you," she repeated, slower, "seeing another woman, Alicia Evans, to be precise?" His reaction was immediate. A flicker of rage flashed in his eyes, then panic. "Vanessa, what on earth? Don't lie." Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to remain calm. "I saw you together. I know you two were at the Hotel Artemis. I know about the penthouse suite under the alias Rick Storm." She spat the last words like venom. He took a step toward her, desperation lining his features. "I can explain," she held up a hand. "Spare me the standard excuses. You lied to me." You pretended you were on a business trip while you were with her. Richard's shoulders sagged, the fight momentarily leaving his posture. It's not what you think. Vanessa laughed bitterly. Oh, really? Because what I think is that you've been sleeping with her behind my back. He closed his eyes, inhaling sharply. Yes, he admitted finally, voice subdued. But you have to understand, it started as a business arrangement. She's an investor in one of my side projects. It turned into something else, something I didn't anticipate. He looked at the floor, an expression of shame overshadowing his face. I never meant to hurt you. She smirked, bitterness flooding her voice. And yet you did, quite efficiently. The space between them crackled with the weight of unspoken accusations. Vanessa felt her heart hammering, but she refused to cry. She had prepared for this moment, rehearsing it over and over in her mind. The words that came next were sharp as daggers. How long? She asked. How many times did you lie to me? Where else did you go, pretend to travel while you were with her? I need to know how deep this betrayal runs. He paced, raking a hand through his hair. It's been a few months, maybe 6. We met at a conference. We started having these private meetings. He winced. But I never stopped loving you. Vanessa let out a short, humorless laugh. Well, that's a relief. I'm sure Alicia appreciates knowing you still love your wife. He flinched as if struck. I know there's nothing I can say to fix this immediately. I messed up, Vanessa. I can't change that. She studied him, her gaze cold and assessing. So, what do you plan to do about it? Richard appeared at a loss. He fumbled for words. I'm not sure. I can end it. I will end it. If that's what you want. Something about his hesitation made a distant alarm ring in Vanessa's mind. He hadn't come to her remorseful, volunteering to break it off. He was waiting to see which direction the wind was blowing. Pathetic, she thought. In a steely voice, she said, You will do absolutely nothing until I decide what's next. Pack your things. Sleep in the guest bedroom. He stood there, stunned, as if he expected tears or a meltdown. Instead, he got the glacial fury of a woman who felt the ground shifting beneath her, but refused to be toppled. Finally, he nodded, shoulders hunched. Okay, he whispered, turning to retrieve his suitcase from the foyer. Vanessa waited until he disappeared down the hall before allowing her facade to crack. A single sob escaped her lips, raw and painful. She pressed the back of her hand to her mouth, stifling any further outcry. It was devastating to see him admit the affair, to confirm her worst fears. And yet, beneath the heartbreak, a new wave of clarity washed over her. She realized something with startling certainty. She was not the only one who had been keeping secrets. Yes, Richard had his affair, but she also held a secret that, if revealed, could destroy the marriage from an entirely different angle. A secret that dated back long before they said I do. A secret involving a man named Henry Hastings, a name she had tried for years to scrub from her mind, from her records, from her life. If Richard's betrayal was a single bullet, Vanessa's hidden truth was a ticking bomb. Before she met Richard, Vanessa had been an entirely different person, living an entirely different life. She'd grown up in upstate New York, the daughter of modestly successful academic parents. At Vassar, she had met Henry Hastings, a charismatic older student from a prestigious family in Long Island. Their relationship was a tumultuous whirlwind full of passion, fights, and makeups. They lived like two young lovers convinced of their own invincibility, but by senior year, reality intruded. Henry's family disapproved of her middle-class background. They pushed him to break things off, to travel and take up a role in a multinational investment firm overseas. When Henry told Vanessa he was leaving, she felt her world collapse. And that's when she discovered she was pregnant. Scared and feeling alone, she sought out Henry's help, only to find him gone, his phone disconnected. no forwarding address. She wrote him letters that went unanswered. She tried to leave messages with his family, only to be stonewalled. In her despair, she believed Henry had abandoned her, that his family's elitism had won. Desperate, she made the wrenching decision to have the baby in secret, giving him up for adoption to a loving couple who'd been on a waiting list for years. Not a day went by that Vanessa didn't think about that child, a boy she never even held for more than a few minutes. In the aftermath, she changed her life drastically. She moved to California, reinvented herself, burying her heartbreak beneath ambition and determination. She landed a job in event planning for a tech company's charity initiatives and eventually crossed paths with Richard Sterling, a visionary entrepreneur who was smitten by her intelligence and beauty. She told him bits of her past, a sanitized version. She never mentioned Henry or the pregnancy. She didn't even tell him about her parents' modest backgrounds, instead allowing him to assume they were comfortable, if somewhat private. She'd been terrified that the truth would change how Richard perceived her, how he valued her. And so, in her mind, the secret was laid to rest for good. She had even changed her legal name from her birth name, Vanessa Beaumont, to Vanessa Sterling once she married. She built a new identity, leaving no visible trace of the life that came before. But secrets have a way of clawing their way back to the surface, especially when betrayal and heartbreak strip away the protective layers of illusion. Richard's affair had shattered her sense of security, and in the aftermath, she found herself wrestling with the demons she had buried. She wondered if karma was finally catching up to her, punishing her for lying to him all these years, for never giving him the chance to love her wholly, with all her flaws and tragedies. In the days following the confrontation, the mansion became a war zone of polite avoidance. Richard maintained a sullen presence in the guest suite, creeping around like a ghost when he believed Vanessa wasn't looking. She made no move to speak with him, and he seemed too ashamed or confused to push the matter. On the surface, life remained functional. Staff continued their chores, calls were returned, events were scheduled, but the heart of the house was dead, replaced by an icy tension that was impossible to ignore. One afternoon, while pacing in her private study, Vanessa received a call from an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Hello, Vanessa Beaumont?" The male voice on the line was tentative, uncertain. Her heart froze. Nobody called her that anymore, not since her official name change. "Who is this?" she demanded, her voice quivering. The man cleared his throat. "My name is Jacob Reeves. I'm an attorney from Rochester, New York. I'm calling on behalf of Henry Hastings." Her breath caught in her throat. Henry Hastings? She had not spoken that name aloud in over a decade. A swirl of emotions erupted inside her: anger, sadness, a lingering heartbreak she had tried to forget. "What about him?" She heard Jacob sigh. "He's been looking for you. Actually, he's been trying to locate you for a while. My firm was just recently engaged to assist. He wants to talk to you about, well, he has some pressing matters regarding the child you two had. It's quite urgent, and I'm afraid I can't disclose more over the phone unless you consent to speak with him." Everything around her blurred. Her mind reeled with memories and regrets. "How did you find this number?" Jacob hesitated. "We tracked your records from Vanessa, then used a private investigator to connect the dots. Please understand, it's not our intention to disturb your life, but we do need to speak to you." Vanessa gripped the edge of her desk, knuckles white. I can't talk about this right now." She hung up abruptly, her entire body shaking. For a moment, she feared she might faint from the onslaught of stress. Henry Hastings was alive and seeking her out after all these years. And he knew about the child. But why now? In the hazy hours that followed, she wrestled with the shock of the phone call. The child was out there, presumably a teenager by now. She had never reached out after the adoption to check on him. The adoptive parents had promised an open line of communication, but she had been too afraid and ashamed to follow through. The last letter she'd received from them came when the boy was only 3. After that, she had moved and severed ties, believing it was better for everyone. But if Henry Hastings had found her, if he wanted to speak, it could only mean one thing: something significant had happened with their son, and he needed her involvement. The potential ramifications sent her heart spiraling. If Richard discovered she had a child she'd never told him about, in a time when their marriage was already teetering, would there be any chance of redemption? Yet a flicker of guilt lit up her conscience. Didn't her son deserve a mother, even after all these years of separation? Had she been so caught up in her new life that she had forgotten her responsibilities to the life she brought into the world? But she had believed she was doing the right thing. She wanted him to have the stable family she never felt she could provide at 21. Now, the phantom of Henry loomed in the periphery, threatening to blow open the carefully constructed facade of her marriage, her social standing, and every public image she had curated. It was the perfect storm: Richard's affair tearing them apart from one side, and her old life collapsing in from the other. If there was one thing Vanessa had learned in the last decade of maneuvering the social and philanthropic scene, it was how to maintain composure under crushing pressure. She scheduled a call with Henry's attorney for the following week, determined to gather all the facts before deciding how to proceed. She would face this crisis methodically, just as she had faced every challenge before, one step at a time. For now, though, she simply curled up in the corner of her study, arms wrapped around her knees, as the weight of betrayal and hidden truths threatened to suffocate her. She felt more alone than ever, haunted by the fragments of a life she'd tried so desperately to forget. By the end of the week, news of Richard's affair had quietly started to leak through the social grapevine. No paparazzi had caught wind of it yet, but a few close acquaintances noticed the tension between the two at a charity function, as well as Richard's conspicuous absence at key events. Whispers circulated among the mansion's staff too. After all, it was difficult to conceal that the master bedroom remained undisturbed while the guest suite was suddenly occupied. Vanessa, determined to control the narrative, maintained her regal composure in public. At board meetings and fundraisers, she appeared in elegant dresses with flawless makeup, addressing her philanthropic endeavors with the same enthusiasm as before. But behind closed doors, she felt like a ticking time bomb, each day battling both Richard's betrayal and the creeping spectre of Henry's renewed presence. One evening, she invited her closest confidant, Elena Carter, over for coffee. Elena had been a dear friend since college, one of the few who was aware, at least partially, of Vanessa's past heartbreak. They sat in the sunroom, warmed by the glow of a crackling fireplace, sipping cappuccinos while the winter wind rustled the palm trees outside. Elena frowned. "He's taken things this far, lying about entire business trips?" She reached across the small table to squeeze Vanessa's hand. "I'm so sorry. I thought Richard was better than this." Vanessa smiled sadly. "I did too, but I guess success changes people. He needs to pay for what he's done," Elena said firmly. "Don't let him walk all over you. You have every right to take him to the cleaners in a divorce, if that's what you want." Vanessa's gaze dropped, swirling her cappuccino absently. "I've considered that. But there's more to this than just the affair. Something from my past has come back. I'm not sure what to do." Elena's eyes brimmed with concern, but Vanessa decided not to divulge her entire secret. The phone call from Henry's attorney was too explosive to share just yet. Instead, she said, "I just need time to think. Time to see if there's anything left worth salvaging." Later that night, after Elena left, Vanessa found herself drawn to Richard's study. He was out again, but she knew the passcode to his computer. She'd never done anything so invasive, but the lines had long since been crossed. She had no qualms about going deeper now. If he was going to lie, she needed every ounce of leverage she could find. She sat down at his imposing oak desk, tapping the keys to unlock the screen. Her heart pounded in her ears as the desktop sprang to life. She began methodically opening emails, scanning them for Alicia Evans' name. Sure enough, dozens of messages flooded the screen, coded references to meetings and follow-ups, all timed suspiciously around his so-called business trips. Vanessa's face hardened. One particular email conversation drew her attention. Alicia wrote, "We need to handle the reveal carefully. If the board finds out prematurely, it could sabotage everything." Richard's response was equally cryptic. "Let's keep it private until the acquisition is finalized. Then we can talk publicly." Vanessa's stomach churned. This was not just a fling. It was something more, a partnership, a plan to merge or sell assets. If Alicia was involved at a high level in Richard's business, it could mean that their affair wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. She felt sick at the thought. Had Richard endangered their entire financial empire with this woman? She copied the emails to a flash drive she found in the desk drawer. She also discovered a series of transactions funneling large sums of money into an account labeled Sterling Innovations Special Projects. The money was then redistributed to an entity registered under Alicia's name. Furious, Vanessa saved it all. This was damning evidence that Richard might have been using marital assets to finance Alicia's ventures without Vanessa's knowledge. A swirl of conflicting emotions consumed her. Betrayal raged hottest, closely followed by a grim satisfaction that she had tangible proof. Part of her wanted to march into the guest suite, wave the flash drive at Richard, and watch him squirm. But another part, the more calculating side, told her to wait. She needed to keep a poker face, to gather more information while he remained clueless that she was several steps ahead. As she clicked through the final folders, her eyes landed on an old photograph hidden among the digital files, a picture of her and Richard on their wedding day, taken at the exact moment they exchanged rings. They both looked so young and unguarded, brimming with hope. The memory rattled her resolve. Tears pricked her eyes. For a second, she saw a glimpse of the man she had once loved with an intensity that overwhelmed her. The man who had been her partner in philanthropic ventures, who had danced with her under fairy lights, whispering promises of forever, but that man was gone, replaced by a calculating adulterer. She closed the photo, ejected the flash drive, and tucked it into her pocket. Then she stood and gazed around the study, her gaze lingering on the heavy leather chair where Richard often sat, conceiving business plans. She left the room, a sense of inevitability weighing on her shoulders. The next day, she received an email from Jacob Reeves, Henry's attorney. The subject line read, "Urgent matter regarding your son." Her hands trembled as she opened it. The body of the email requested a conference call, offering 2 potential times. Vanessa's thoughts spiraled. She had no idea what had happened to her son, whether he was healthy, whether he was in some kind of trouble. She pictured a teenage boy, perhaps dark-haired like Henry, or with her hazel eyes. Had she lost the chance to ever be part of his life, or was fate giving her an opening? With a trembling heart, she replied, confirming a time for the call. She had no words to describe her terror and anticipation. That evening, Richard approached her while she was reading in the drawing room. The tension in his body told her this was not a casual conversation. She set her book aside and looked up. "What is it?" He cleared his throat, looking unusually nervous. "I wanted to talk to you about us." Vanessa kept her face impassive. "Go on." He shifted his weight uncomfortably. "I just wanted to say that I'm sorry for everything. I know I've been distant, and obviously it's more than just distance at this point." He swallowed. "I don't expect you to forgive me easily, but I do want us to have a chance to move past this." Anger flared inside her. "You want a second chance?" He nodded, staring at the floor. "I do. I'll end things with Alicia." I'm prepared to break off all business dealings with her as well, if that's what it takes." Vanessa stared, her expression unreadable. She wanted to laugh at the audacity, to slap him for the hurt he'd caused, but she just said, "Why now? You've been lying for months," he sighed. "It's complicated, but I realize that no matter what I feel for Alicia, it's not worth destroying our life together. I still love you, Vanessa. Can we at least talk about what it would take to fix this?" She studied him, crossing her arms. "I'll think about it." He nodded, relief washing over his features. "That's all I ask." As he turned to leave, Vanessa called after him. "Richard." "Yes?" She paused, meeting his gaze with the cold edge of her own. "Even if we consider a path forward, don't assume I'm going to make it easy." His face fell. "I understand." When he left, she sank back into the sofa, mind swirling with questions. Did she want to reconcile? Could she even forgive him if she tried? And what would happen when her own secret exploded into the open, potentially overshadowing his misdeeds? The crossroads stood before her. One road led to retribution, possibly a messy divorce that would rattle the pillars of their empire. The other road led to a tentative attempt to salvage the marriage, haunted by betrayal and her own undisclosed truths. As she stared into the flickering candlelight on the coffee table, she knew in her bones that the real confrontation was yet to come, because as much as she grappled with Richard's betrayal, the hidden bombshell about her own son threatened to unravel everything on a far greater scale. The fateful day of the conference call with Henry's attorney arrived. Vanessa retreated to her private study, locked the door, and sat in front of her laptop, heart pounding against her ribcage. She inhaled deeply, bracing herself, and then connected to the video call. The screen flickered to reveal two faces. The older, bespectacled man was Jacob Reeves, the attorney. Next to him sat a figure both familiar and jarring, Henry Hastings, the father of her child, wearing an expensive suit, silver strands weaving through his once jet-black hair. Vanessa felt her throat constrict. She had spent countless nights recalling his face, wondering if she had truly loved him, if he had ever truly loved her. Now, here he was, older and more haunted, yet still bearing the confident posture that once dazzled her in college. "Vanessa," he said, voice thick with emotion, "it's been a long time." She stiffened, forcing herself to maintain composure. "Yes, it has. Why are you reaching out now?" Henry exhaled, a pained expression crossing his features. "I only recently discovered that you had the baby. My family. They lied to me. They said you chose to get rid of it, paid you off. Apparently. I only learned the truth after my father passed, and I saw some old letters you wrote, letters they never forwarded to me." Vanessa's heart tightened. Fury and grief warred within her. All those desperate letters, begging him to come back, to help her. She stared at him, tears threatening to form, but she fought them back. "I wrote so many. You never answered. I thought you abandoned me." He shook his head, guilt etched into his features. "I would never have done that if I'd known. I left the country, joined the family firm in London, and my parents assured me you'd moved on." She suppressed a bitter laugh. "Well, I did move on, eventually," he swallowed. "And the child, our son, he's grown up. He's been raised by adoptive parents who adore him. But there's something you need to know." Henry paused, his expression contorting in pain. "He's sick, Vanessa. Diagnosed with a rare kidney disorder. The adoptive parents reached out to me, desperate for a compatible donor. When they discovered I wasn't a match, they asked if I could find you. The doctors believe that a biological mother might be the best chance at a successful transplant." Vanessa felt the world slip away beneath her feet. She clutched the edge of her desk to steady herself. "Oh my God," she whispered. "He's sick?" Henry nodded, tears in his eyes. "He's only 15. His name is Michael. He's a bright kid, brilliant at math, wants to be an engineer, but this disease is aggressive. The doctors need a donor as soon as possible. Vanessa felt tears slip down her cheeks, her carefully guarded facade crumbling. Her son, the boy she gave away, was in danger. That primal maternal instinct, dormant for years, roared to life. "What can I do? How do I get tested?" Jacob Reeves spoke up. "We've arranged for a discreet testing facility in Los Angeles, if you're willing. All you have to do is sign some paperwork, and we can proceed. If you're a match, the doctors will coordinate the transplant. We understand this is a lot to handle, but time is critical." Vanessa's mind spun in 100 directions. She could only imagine the look on Richard's face if he found out about this. But her son's life hung in the balance. She had no choice. She nodded, wiping tears from her cheeks. "Send me the paperwork. I'll do it." Henry's voice trembled. "Thank you, Vanessa. I know we can't rewind the years or undo the pain we've both endured, but this boy, he deserves a chance." She ended the call soon after, her emotions raw and overwhelming. The immediate concern was her son's life, overshadowing everything else. But in the background, a daunting realization loomed. She needed to tell Richard. She couldn't vanish into a hospital for a potential organ donation without offering an explanation, especially not now, when their marriage was already poised at the brink of collapse. Yet, she dreaded the conversation. How did one casually mention, "By the way, I have a 15-year-old child you knew nothing about, and now I might have to donate my kidney to save his life"? The thought alone made her nauseous, but she knew that if she wanted any chance of honesty, and if she wanted to salvage or even gracefully end their relationship, she needed to confess. When Richard returned from a late lunch, she was waiting in the main living room, the same place where she had confronted him about Alicia. He paused at the threshold, noticing her grim expression. "Vanessa?" he asked cautiously. She gestured for him to sit. He did so, confusion etching his brow. She began hesitantly, voice trembling. "Richard, I have something to tell you. Something I've hidden for a long time." He frowned, concern warring with apprehension. "Go on." Taking a deep breath, she began her confession. Her relationship with Henry Hastings, the pregnancy, the adoption. She explained how she had tried to reach Henry, how she believed he had abandoned her. She told him about the phone call from the attorney, the child's illness, and the urgency of the situation. Richard sat in stunned silence, color draining from his face. He stared at her, mouth agape. "You? You had a child? How? How could you keep something like that from me for all these years?" Tears stung her eyes again. "I was terrified, Richard, terrified you'd judge me, or that it would ruin the life we were building. It's haunted me ever since." He pressed a hand to his forehead, exhaling sharply. "My God, Vanessa." He looked up, something akin to betrayal in his gaze. "You've always criticized me for not being transparent, for shutting you out with business dealings. But this? You had a son, gave him away, and never once thought to share it with me?" She flinched. "I know I was wrong," her voice quavered. "But right now, that boy, my son, needs me. He needs my kidney." Richard stood abruptly, striding across the room to stare out the large bay windows. "I don't even know how to respond. I'm still reeling from the fact that he broke off, shaking his head. For several heart-wrenching seconds, neither spoke. Finally he turned, eyes meeting hers with a somber clarity. "Are you okay? I mean, physically. Donating a kidney is serious." A wave of relief coursed through her that he was concerned about her well-being, even amid the avalanche of betrayal. "I'll have to get tested first. I have no idea if I'm a match. But if I am, yes, I'm willing to go through with it." He nodded slowly. "And the father, Henry Hastings, he's the one who reached out?" "Yes." Richard's jaw clenched. "So he just shows up after all this time and expects you to risk your life for a child you've never even met?" She bristled. "It's my child too, and my decision." Richard raised his palms. "I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just furious on your behalf that this man, who apparently abandoned you, now resurfaces with demands. Vanessa sighed. It's complicated. He says he never got my messages, that his family kept the letters from him. For now, that's beside the point. The child is sick. That's all that matters. A long silence followed. Finally, Richard approached her tentatively. We're both guilty of deceit. We both have secrets. And now, we're facing a crisis bigger than our marriage problems. This changes everything. She searched his eyes, noticing the mixture of shock, hurt, and an unexpected flicker of protectiveness. It does. He let out a ragged breath. I'm sorry, Vanessa, about everything. I know we can't fix what's broken overnight, but I want to be here for you if you'll let me. I don't expect you to forgive my affair, but if there's a chance to salvage us, I want to take it. And if you need support with this child, I'll do whatever I can. Emotions swelled in her chest, nearly suffocating her. She wanted to scream at him for his betrayal, to remind him that he had no right to console her after what he'd done. But she also recognized the sincerity in his offer. In that moment, stripped of illusions, they stood as two flawed human beings, bound by a decade of shared life. So, she simply nodded, a tremor running through her. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know where we'll end up, but thank you." He reached for her hand, gently enclosing it in his. They lingered there, uncertain but united for the first time since the affair came to light. Yet in the back of Vanessa's mind, she understood that the real battle was just beginning. She had to undergo medical tests, perhaps a transplant. She had to face Henry's presence, dredging up a past of heartbreak and betrayal. She had to navigate her shattered marriage, now steeped in revelations that tested the boundaries of forgiveness. And looming over it all was the knowledge that her son's life hung in the balance. Still, for the first time in weeks, she felt something like hope, a fragile seedling pushing through the rubble of deceit and heartbreak. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance at redemption for them all, if they could weather the storm together. Thank you for diving into this turbulent world of secrets, betrayals, and shocking revelations where trust is shattered, love is tested, and the past collides with the present in the most unexpected way. Will Vanessa find the strength to save her son's life, and in the process, heal the wounds of the past? Can Richard truly break free from his affair and regain Vanessa's shattered faith? And what role will Henry Hastings play, now that the truth about their shared history has surfaced? These questions linger like echoes in a once happy home, forever changed by deception. If you want more riveting tales that explore the hidden corners of human emotion, be sure to like this video, share it with friends who appreciate a dramatic twist, and subscribe to the channel for future stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you for being part of our journey.